We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And it's me, George, Steve and Mitch tonight. We might have an appearance from another panellist at some point. Joe's off, he's working, hope he's well. But 2 hours of the usual stuff on a Friday night. And already picking up a few of the comments from certain people in the chat about last week, which has been... I think it's been nicknamed Negativity Week. But at the end of the day, when things aren't going well at Newcastle, even we as a collective find it difficult to be positive. Let's put it this way. But 7 points out of 9 through to the next round of the Cup, as I have continued to say throughout all of the shows, is not a bad start. And if we can build on it and play better over the course of the next period of games, then Newcastle really have got a season to be looking forward to. However, we don't control the news coming out of St James's Park. And the news that came out of St James's Park over the last couple of days, I would say has probably created a bit of negativity amongst the fan base. And that's Paul Mitchell's interview. So, lads, give us a happy-go-lucky, well-rehearsed, upbeat version of events with Paul Mitchell, please, George.
That's easy. I just wish you'd shut up. Simple as that. I mean, he spends time telling me what's not going to happen to Newcastle United anymore. Not going to pay more than people want. No boost in the fee because it's Newcastle United, because we've got the richest owners and all that. And yet that's after being, dragged over the coals by the idiot at Crystal Palace. And having if I'm maybe mistaken, but my information is that all had to be stopped by our chairman. The chairman actually used the phrase "having my pants pulled down." Now, where did that phrase come from? And it just beggars belief that he's still saying things like that. The other thing I find fascinating is the commentary by other people, the independent voice of Newcastle United supporters, the MAG. My goodness, their take on it's fascinating because it's all Eddie Howe's fault. Eddie Howe threw this bomb in and won't see, doesn't want the England job, and so that leaves Newcastle United able to do what they like, etc., etc. I mean, it's just I want to talk to the hierarchy in the club. I want them to be interactive with her, but we just had 14 years of somebody who every 6 months used to make a new statement about how he was going to change, and it got bloody worse. Well, I don't want any more of that, thank you. Don't want any more of that. And the other stuff that he was saying about is all things that we've hoped for a long time. What I want to see is the evidence that it's happening. I haven't seen any evidence that it's happening at the moment, and the Gahey thing is just a symptom of it, as far as I'm concerned. So, yes, please, want to talk to you, Paul, and want to hear from you as one of the hierarchy of St James's Park. But I want to be able to hear something I can use, I can converse with, I can recognise, not something which is absolutely contrary to the way in which they behaved over the last month, particularly over the Gahey transfer. So I wish I could be more positive about it. The most positive thing about it is that he's talking to her. He's had made an attempt to talk to her. I think that is very positive, because he's been Mr. Quiet up to now when things have been happening. But it would be nice to hear more from them. But a bit more positive, Paul, please, and a bit more about what's going to happen, what really is happening, not what we failed with a month ago. That does nothing to encourage me at all. So that's as positive as I can be, Steve.
Yeah, I mean,
the important thing is he's speaking for me.
I mean, it's very difficult. Stephen Kennedy, one of our regular viewers and somebody who submits quite a few photographs for Tweet of the Week, he sent me this week. He goes, Steve, question for you and the lads on Friday, and we can add this because it's about Mitchell. So Steve, you know, I'm going to come to you on the same subject. He goes, listening to the reporting of the Paul Mitchell press interview, I got the impression he was having a dig at Eddie Howe on how the previous transfer policies, which Eddie seemed to have quite a role in, was not fit for purpose. And where Eddie was telling the world he was one step removed from the transfers now and is not sure what is going on, Mitchell has said quite firmly that Eddie was kept in the loop and was spoken to by Mitchell once or twice a day on that very subject. And he seemed to be criticising Eddie's want for only buying players with Premiership experience, which is a valid point, I think. We should be looking further afield. It seems to me this was a message to everyone, Eddie included. Things are changing at the club, and it's either strap in and go with the flow or bail out now time. It's good that this message to everyone has come out, but I wonder how it is going to be reported. So that was Stephen's take on it. As I say, he's a regular viewer. And David Cook, another one who watches on a regular basis, he said, "Hi Steve, a possible topic for the Amigos is Paul Mitchell's interview with the written press. My view from reading the Daily Mail report is, to me, the purpose of Paul Mitchell giving this interview was to big himself up, deflect from the current dissatisfaction of fans, and disguised by intelligent compliments about Eddie, throw him under the bus. Also, based on this, expect Nixon and Howe to be replaced. Eddie's next press conference will be particularly awkward after essentially being called a liar. Thanks, David." So that's two of our regular viewers. That's not me, Steve Wraith, Neil Mitchell, Steve Hasty, George Mitchell, being negative. That's two of our viewers who have tuned in and watched the interview in completely opposite ends of the country with completely level heads and decided that interview by Paul Mitchell is negative. Steve, what's your view on Paul Mitchell's interview?
On first listening or reading what Paul Mitchell had said, I think I texted you guys and went, wow, looks like he's thrown everybody under the bus. Eddie was thrown under the bus. Eddie's nephew was thrown under the bus. Steve Nixon was thrown under the bus. Amanda was thrown under the bus. Darren Eales wasn't thrown under the bus, but literally everybody else around seemed to be. Then on reflection, I look back and I've had a little bit of time to ponder on his words. And I think possibly what happened was Paul Mitchell did I'm Paul Mitchell. First time we've had an opportunity for the press to sit around, an ideal time. That dreaded time that all Newcastle fans harbour back to, which is international break. And there he is sitting in the Sir Bobby Robson suite talking to the gathered press of Tyneside. But he seemed to go off on a one, didn't he? I mean, it was very much a scattergun interview. I don't know whether it was really an interview or whether it was a talk. I don't know whether they were asking him questions and he was responding, or whether he just went off like a machine gun and just laid it all on the line, everything that he was thinking. It was very difficult to tell from the way that the local press picked up on it. I mean, the first we knew about it very, very quickly was Craig Hope's article, which was the one that led to me to immediately go thrown under the bus. I then looked at the lads from the Chronicle and the Newcastle World, and they seem to take a little bit more reserved view on it. They literally just reported on what they thought he'd said, which gave me the impression that questions weren't asked. And the reason I say that is that there were some things that he mentioned. Let's take transfers over the last sort of 2.5 years that he talked about under the regime. He mentioned that he felt as though that other clubs had adopted a different approach. I think he said that other clubs were data-driven. We weren't. He said that we were very much looking at Premier League players and should be looking further afield. We should be looking abroad, looking at that overseas market. Yeah, fine. But I think what we have to remember is that Newcastle United, when Eddie Howe came, were in dire straits. The first 10 games, we weren't winning games. He couldn't buy a point. When we went out, we had to buy players that could bail us out. You know, he went and got Trippier, Dan Burn. Once we were survived, then we got Botman, we got Isak, we had Bruno come in, we had a rejuvenated Joe Linton, who was already at the club, but was really in the doldrums and could have gone for 5 million before he suddenly became the 40 million pound player that we paid for. So there was an awful lot going on that probably drove the transfer activity in that particular direction. Having said that, it wasn't long ago, i.e. February, that I read an article, and I've jotted this down because I couldn't believe it when he said that we'd had to start looking globally for more incomes. In February, there was a press article written extolling the virtues of Steve Nixon, his depth and knowledge, as well as his relationship with agents, which was pivotal, when Ashworth went on gardening leave. Again, Nixon was described as pivotal in the arrival of Gordon and Isak. He was heavily involved as the point man and negotiator. And yet all of a sudden, between February and now, it seems to have all turned to crap. According to if I'm reading what Paul Mitchell's saying about our transfer activity in the last, or the way that we've managed our transfer activity in the last 2.5 years, and I'm thinking this doesn't match up. But at no time did any of those press guys pick up on anything he said. They just let him talk, and then they've just reported on. What they've done is they've left it to us and to the fan base to then interpret what he said and to interrogate it and come up with their own conclusions. Did he throw Eddie under the bus at one point? He talked about him talking to Eddie, but he also mentioned that he had nothing to do with any of the transfer activity because he'd only been here 7 weeks and the plans were already in place. So yes, he talked to Eddie, but he wasn't talking to Eddie, obviously, about transfer activity because he didn't know anything about it because he'd left that in the hands of somebody else. Now, Amanda was very much integral to some of our transfer activity when Ashworth left. She was very much central to some of the transfer negotiations that happened. Let's take Anthony Gordon as an example. She was heavily involved in that, and you saw that on the TV programs that they did with Amazon. You could tell that the way that the relationship they had with Bruno, for example. So she was heavily involved, but then she left. Now, that must have left them with who? Was it Steve Nixon? Or was it Darren Eales? Who was the person that was controlling the gay activity? I would suspect it wasn't Steve Nixon. I would suspect it was probably Darren Eales. He didn't mention Darren Eales in passing. So what I'm seeing is a compartmentalized sort of approach to how he described his talks with Eddie Howe. But it was like, yeah, I'm the new guy. We're chatting about this. But it implied they were talking about transfer activity because it implied they'd talk. But it didn't. At no point did he say we're talking about this. Then there was a couple of throwaway remarks. And then the final attack, I suppose, was when he did go on about the previous 2.5 years, the fact that we didn't do anything global, we were very much not data driven, but seemed to be hung up in the Premier League. And I think that was a pop at Eddie's nephew, to be perfectly honest. I think there was pops all over the place, but I think it's him getting all these ducks in a row, letting people in the club or letting fans think that he's the man now that's going to drive this football club forward. And I think, in my thoughts, the only issue now that I have is that it's yet another 5-year plan. If I go through any more 5-year plans with Newcastle United, I think we must be up to at least 45 years at least now, in terms of consecutive 5-year plans that we've had, where I've seen very little to no progress. I hope Mitchell's can get it right. Really, really do, because I'm a Newcastle fan and I want it to be right. But it's do we need another 5-year plan? Is it, especially when, and again, I'll probably get ripped apart for this. 5-year plans from people used to be managers. Now it's 5-year plans from sporting directors. Sporting directors last less than managers in some instances. And Paul Mitchell has stayed at every club he's been to, one of which he was a sporting director, and that was Monaco. But the other 3, he was involved purely in identifying transfer targets. And he lasted like 3 years in each of them. In one of them, Tottenham Hotspur, the biggest of the lot, he was on gardening leave for 18 months of his 3 years anyway, because he fell out with Daniel Levy. All of this doesn't make me feel comfortable, but they've appointed him. So we've got to go down that neck of the woods. And I think if there was one other thing that I would say, he mentioned and implied that we're now going to have to get used to being a selling club. A selling club to reinvest, obviously. But I just looked at his last 3 years at Monaco. In his first full season, the outgoings at Monaco were 150 million, and the incomings, he spent 45.3 million. That was in his second year. In his first year, for some reason, they only had 4 coming in and 11 leaving, but at no point did they ever disclose anything. And then in 2023-24 season, which he only stayed until October of 2023, the outgoings were 52 million and the incomings were 72 million. But he was gone by the October, November of that season anyway. So yes, we can see that he can dabble in the transfer market, but the fact is that Newcastle is a much bigger club than any of the other clubs he's been to. Certainly, I consider Newcastle to be a far, far bigger club than Monaco. Monaco that caters for billionaires and waiters, because there's nothing else in the 16,000 seater crowd at Monaco. Newcastle's a 52,000 seater beast in an area where there's probably 500,000 Newcastle fans, and the passion that's there, and we're expecting something. And is there a disappointment that we're not getting it? There's the risk of that, but good luck to him. We all hope he succeeds. We hope he's got it on the right level. We hope that we're gonna get to where we need to be. But we're being built up for some key players leaving in the summer, and we're only into not the beginning of September of this season, and it's already looking as though his plans will concentrate, because there's nothing that seems to be coming through on the commercial side. There's an awful lot needs to come in on the commercial side, but I think he's identified in short term that the only growth they can make financially to move us forward is to offload players to then to be bringing others, because of the profit and sustainability rules that exist in the Premier League. And I suppose in reality, what I should be saying is that all of my anger and annoyance should be driven towards the Premier League and should be driven towards PSR, and that's where we should be fighting. But instead, I'm probably targeting Paul Mitchell, and I'm probably doing him an injustice, because he's probably just as frustrated as I am.
It's interesting you say a 5-year plan. Christ, I've seen 8-year plan, 10-year plan. You know, it's rubbish. I don't buy into any of this rubbish. You know, I mean, the 5-year plan went out the window when we got to the Champions League because everyone was thinking we're going to win the Premier League. I like what Tom says. Tom, who does the We Are the, you know, Jody said Jody's there program on Wednesdays. He said now Eddie is going to be tasked with answering all the questions about club dynamics because of Mitchell's statements. Completely unnecessary drama. 3 words there, Tom. Nailed it in 3 words. Completely unnecessary drama. And isn't that what this club is all about? Mitch, I've seen people say, bring some calm. That's what you do, Mitch. I've seen you called a bully this week as well.
Well, you know, depends what that means, I guess. Look, I've seen a lot of the comments going along the bottom of the screen. And Mitchell's interview has a hell of a lot of moving parts. Even more if you consider that 2 of those who've reported on it have made it quite clear there were comments, clarifications, and additional things said which they were not allowed to report on. They were said off the record. Then I've read at least 4 different views from 4 different journalists on that interview. And I can totally see why we've got so many different views on that interview coming from the in our comments. Because I've read all 4, and you'd think they'd all been to different interviews for me. And this is where I think it gets exceptionally complex. One thing I will say, the club fronted up. I wasn't expecting to hear anything from anybody. I'm very surprised that somebody did front up. Not surprised that it's Mitchell over Eels, personally. Now, talk about throwing people under the bus or having a heavy dose of realism and a bit of honesty. Time will tell you on this one. I think one person, everybody's forgotten all of this, who I think most definitely has been thrown under the bus is Ashworth. And when he talks about the setup for recruitment and the poor level of data-driven background, this comes into something which I guess I can chat a little bit about now. You know, we often say we talk about things and hear things that we don't talk to everybody about because we drive the fan base insane. Because it damn near drives us insane on occasions. But there'd been an appointment, it was an Ashworth appointment that somebody gave me feedback on that said they've appointed a guy to a role. It's Ashworth's appointment, 100% his. He wanted this guy in. And if you compare the same person doing the job at Man City and Liverpool, it's like comparing a PhD holder to a BTEC student.
Yeah.
And so you want to look for one area where one area that he's obviously pointing fingers at is that. What has Ashworth left behind? Where he scurried off on garden leave and wanted desperately to go back to Man U. One wonders who else had been finding them out while he was at the club. His interview seems to also back the idea that the PSR debacle, for me anyway, is a man they're made at, and that people within the club are hanging that squarely on their shoulders. Whether that's right or whether that's wrong, again, I don't know if we'll ever know, on the record or off the record. But he's very fair to say, look, I only killed Coleman 7 weeks ago. In the level that he seems to be suggesting that we're at is not the level that we all were told we were at. His relationship with Howe was early, and it's been, developed. As I've said this before, when you've got high-level executives and one of the best young managers in the business, if they can't find a way to work together, then it's a sad state indeed. And that's on everyone. That's on absolutely everyone. Because one thing I feel that this transfer window has done is really made some of our fans feel like mugs. I've been out and bought all 3 shirts for all the family. I've put my money into the club and everywhere I can. You're telling us you need help with PSR. Well, I've put everything in that I absolutely can. And you haven't bought anybody. And you're hiding behind PSR again. However, what he says is quite right. If you say, well, why are Chelsea still able to spend what they're able to spend? Take the accounting shite out of it. Take all of the fancy hotel sales and everything else out of it and hiving off the women's team and selling that to themselves. Look at how much they make on transfers. Similarly, Brighton, how much have they made on transfers? West Ham, they got 100 million for one player last season and didn't go mad in the transfer market. And they've carried that on into the summer. And so there's loads of other examples we can look at whereby our sales have been pitiful. And I think that's what he's bracing me for, that we've got to be prepared sometimes to have a little bit of a clear out, even with players we might like to keep. Because balancing the books, as has already been shown, is, as the PSR rules stand, is difficult. What happens to PSR in the future, which we'll probably talk a bit about later in the show, is another matter. I think it's close to being screwed soon, personally. I think somebody will chuck their toys out their cot eventually and go to the Premier League. But that's by the by. While the rules are there, and that's what we have to play to, that's what we've got to play to. I think there's a lot of other potential for other places he's having a go at. However, as we've seen, we haven't heard the off-the-record stuff. It wasn't a live interview. It wasn't something we could watch or we could interact with. And when 4 reporters, are delivering their thoughts on this same thing, and it comes across so differently that it then shapes the opinion of the fan base 4 different ways at least. That tells me there's a lot being unsaid. Because all of those journalists who reported on it seem positive for the future. Seem positive that there's something going to work going forward. Even if some of them maybe is a little bit less sugar-coated than others. When even Luke Edwards comes out with a degree of positivity after an interview like that, he's not being antagonistic or contrarian. That's him. Craig's had a bit of a battering, but I think Craig sometimes tries to be too honest. Because everything that's aimed at him, oh, well, he's a fan. And so if he gets too happy, he's a happy clapper. If he gets too negative, he's the Grim Reaper. Mark Douglas has always laid things pretty straight on the line, particularly when he was in the region, and as a result, has a soft spot for the club. There's no doubt about that. I think what I read of his write-up about it was fairly positive, and he seems pretty upbeat about it. Similarly with Liam Kennedy and Jordan Cronin, they come across with their chat that they did after it. They seemed relatively positive too. And so I think there's lots of things to be taken from that. I genuinely think the thrust of it was to go at Ashworth and possibly Amanda and Mehrdad. I don't think it was to slap Eddie on the wrist at all. However, again, have one possible scenario is that they've turned round and said, right, Eddie, this window's your way and on your head be it. It's possible. But that didn't come across like that in that interview. And so I'm a little bit more circumspect about it. I certainly don't want to pull on the drama of it too much. I am impressed the club fronted up. I'm not surprised who ended up fronting up. Now, I think Craig Hope's headline writers chuck him under the bus sometimes, by the way, getting the clicks and likes, but that's another matter, knowing how it works these days. Imagine what we'd be like now if the club hadn't said anything. There'd be angst aplenty. We really would be tearing each other apart because we're so bloody good at that. You know, the takeover brought a level of healing that was long overdue. But every little bump in the road shows some of those cracks need more than a sticking plaster. Some of those cracks probably need a skin graft. And the only thing that's going to bring that is success on the pitch. And I think the club know that. And certainly the club want that. However, we've also been hamstrung by a lack of commercial deals, a lack of commercial income. There's something going on there that I don't know whether we're keeping powder dry until the Man City challenge on related parties, etc., comes out. I find the Red Bull deal out of the blue quite interesting because we were firmly entrenched with Monster as an energy drink partner, as if you need one these days. But yes, I am, Gary. Thank you very much. But that has the potential to become an even bigger deal. And one thing we were told that the commercial department were very keen to do was to get people in on smaller deals, get them accustomed to what they're getting out of it, and then bump their relationship up and let them become a bigger partner. Because the paperwork's already done, they're already approved as a partner. It's just the amounts that then need signed off. Red Bull, the English market is one of the few areas that Red Bull have not got a big toehold in. Yes, they've got a relationship with Leeds now through their American ownership and their shirt sponsorship with Leeds. But for us to switch across there out of the blue, it is a big deal. And so I think there's lots to be taken out here that you could spin as a negative. For me, I see shoots of a different relationship. And I think one in the long term that might actually be for the benefit of the club. We can't change the past. The only thing we can make a difference to is today and tomorrow. And we as fans sometimes can change nothing. We're just carried along on the tide, and it makes it very difficult and frustrating sometimes. But overall, I don't find the interview was necessarily negative as a lot of people feel it is. Because like I say, we go and read the 4 opinions that are out there, you'd think there'd been a different interviews.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, there's so many different interpretations of that interview, and we've seen it in the chat tonight, you know, and we came on tonight really, as always, without discussing what we're going to talk about. You know, we had a little chat about other things, but I always just come in and lead with whatever I think we should be leading with, and the lads then answer the question appropriately. And George is always in the driving seat because he's the first man who started. But as most people saw last week, me and Mitch disagreed on a couple of things, and these things happen. But yeah, look, I'm not going to give an opinion. I read the interview, and it can be interpreted in so many different ways. So yeah, I agree with all the lads in different ways, in different shapes. But I just want to see Newcastle do well. I just want to see them get to where we all wanted to get to, which is to more cup finals and to win something. Before I come back to you, Steve, because I can see you keep making another point. John says, afternoon, everyone. First it was Trippier, then Byrne, Bruno, Botman, Isaac, Gordon, Hall, Livramento, Tonali, etc. Our brand new SD reckons that the transfer system was unfit for purpose. Was it really? If the purpose was for mid-table mediocrity and a relegation battle or the championship, then he's right. But we qualified for the Champions League. am I missing something? He says, I know we ran into PSR trouble, but even so, his comments are a bit worrying. If something works superbly for 2.5 years, then why fix it? And he says,
he's not talking about the players. He's talking about the processes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, lads, 2 weeks ago, many of the fans were confident of the top 4 campaign. Some of those are now worried about top 6. Where do you stand? I still think we'll finish top 4, John. I haven't changed my opinion. I haven't changed my mind. I still think Newcastle United will finish top 4 this year. So none of this has changed my mind. Certainly not. And Tom, this will never happen. Eels having a presser. Not at all. He's quite happily ensconced under his stone again, where he'd probably stay for a while, I would imagine. Go on, Steve. You had another point to make before we take a break.
Yeah, I was just going to say, picking up on what Mitch is saying, and I don't know whether it's just me, or I'd love to know other people's opinion on this, but the way that the press handled it and the way that they reported on it, to me, is split into 2. I know Mitch mentioned 4 before, but I think it's split into 2, actually. I think we've got the younger press lads, the Jordans and the Charlie Bennetts and Dom and Liam to a certain extent, because he works with them. We've got the way they have sort of taken on board what's been said, and it's all looking everything rosy in the garden, and we're going forward, and this is all positive. And then you've got the more dyed-in-the-wool guys who have been there, seen it, and got the T-shirt, the Simon Birds, the Mark Douglas, Lee Ryder to a certain extent, Craig, Miles Starfeth. These guys have been ensconced and have seen this time and time again. And I think they often get the opportunity because of their experience to delve a little bit further and to question, if you like, whereas the other guys are very much into the, like I say, the new books as opposed to the older lads, And I'm wondering whether there's an element of that in it, and we are, because of our age, sort of looking over the fence at Miles and at Simon Bird and Craig, as opposed to the Jordans and Charlie Bennetts and Doms of this world, and the way that they've picked up on it. And it might be just purely down to that. I'm not too sure, but it's just something that cropped up that went through my mind when we were rattling through,
Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, Davey, there are teams worse than us, mate. I don't watch any of that, but I know people like Alan Thompson, who does the fans forum, tend to watch stuff like that, and ultimately, it's it isn't just Newcastle United that goes through these kind of situations. Although sometimes, like weeks like last week, it does feel like it's us. Okay, as always, plenty to get through on a Friday. We'll start with a little bit of this. Yeah, I'm still playing catch up on these. We're getting inundated, and we got saturated with Oasis ones. I only picked the best ones out. This was a good one. Explain the Oasis reunion in football terms. Very clever, that. Very clever. This one from Gary. This is Wilson. He's now working from home. And now Sean Connery sings a Buddy Holly song. Peggy Sue. Very good. Peggy Sue.
Dear.
Jermaine Jennison, Hugh Edwards to present a podcast together about being sacked by the BBC. It must not be entitled Hugh Jennison. This is definitely the angriest post I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
And here's an early drone, lads. First seen in primary school.
I had homing device as well. If you duck left, it always got you.
It did, yeah. This one, okay, 2 drinks and we go home. This is our nights out. 3:36 a.m.
Great scene.
And we'd like to give a life hack on here. Here you go. Turn any sofa into a sofa bed by telling your wife to calm down. And if you ever feel like your brain is inadequate, lads, think of this guy.
Oh, dear.
I like that.
Ironing done, hoovering done, dusting done, kids bathed, kids in bed. Perfect time to leave the pub, lads.
Yeah.
And most expensive vehicle to operate in 23-24 is this. And well done to this seagull. Hero Bird saves guy from $300 fine in America.
Fantastic, that. Well done.
And careful what you put in your bins, lads. Just been past your house and you can't put plastic in a green bin, apparently. And another one from Gary Scott, never play a leapfrog with a unicorn. Good advice, Gary. Thanks for that. And this girl had posted, PTSD is well and truly kicked in after that weekend. This girl replied, you were at Creamfields, not the invasion of Normandy. And once you see this picture, you'll never be able to unsee it. Yes, unfortunate placement of hair there. And don't go to this festival, anyone, in Bradford. It's a waste of time. And this one, the Queen's Arms, today's offer, buy any 2 drinks and pay for them both. And a few more signs for you. Please do not, in the rocks, we can't believe we had to make this sign.
Great.
Potholes ahead warning, no swimming, no fishing, no bungee jumping allowed in potholes. And another restaurant with an unfortunate name.
Deliveries at the back entrance, apparently.
Apparently, yes. And another one, Frying Nemo.
That's class.
Brilliant fish and chips, apparently. And this one from Scunny Mag. I like all Carnival games, but Duck Duck Anal is my favourite. Whatever tickles your fancy, Paul. Another one as well. Someone thinks they're funny. And this one as well. I'm me, not meat. See the individual go vegan above a chicken and pizza shop. And oh, the irony.
Look at that.
All the dominoes falling into one place. And roast beef and criminalised onion relish. An interesting sandwich, that, lads.
Very much so.
And this toilet's seen better days. I can wholeheartedly recommend the new curry house in Dudley High Street. The mutton madras is excellent.
Oh.
Yeah.
And a woman shot her husband because he stepped on a freshly mopped floor. That is correct. And it took you 20 minutes to arrest her. Why? The floor was still wet.
Oh.
And I did like these couple of cartoon ones from Soda Pop Kid. Guys, watch out for the waterfall. Conspiracy theorist. Where's your tinfoil hat? Sauce. Very clever. Followed by this one. Following the narrative. You're a terrible person. Analysing the facts. Cartoon sums up at Newcastle United. That's it. This one as well from Beverly from UGTL for the Amigos. Come on, meal ticket. Don't die on me now. United Group Travel. Thank you very much for that one. And what are you shaking for? I'm the one she's going to eat. And this one. What's the difference between curtains and toilet paper? I don't know. So it was you.
Oh.
Message for Arsenal fans on this one. Some available apparently in 19 different designs, though, says Stephen Kennedy. Delude them all. Take one a day to think it's your year. And he has some good tires for Melly Bonds. For when you need to go downhill really fast, get some Manchester Uniteds. Couple of jokes to cheer everybody up going into the weekend. Just before I die, I'm going to swallow a bag of popcorn kernels. My cremation is going to be epic. And I asked an elderly bloke why he was using 2 massive frozen chips as walking sticks. He replied, "They're McCain's."
Oh, dear.
Right.
Yeah.
And my wife just turned to me and said, "I was talking to you and you yawned 6 times. Am I boring you?" I said, "Those were not yawns. Those were 6 unsuccessful attempts to speak." And I was doing a crossword in the pub and said to my Scottish mate, "I'm stuck on one, trapped on a desert island, 8 letters starting with M." He said, "Marooned." I said, "Thanks, I'll have a pint of lager then."
Oh, dear.
And Mr. Tickle wanted to marry the girl of his dreams. However, Tess was reluctant to take on his surname. And the wife just phoned to tell me the 3 women in her office have received flowers today and they are absolutely gorgeous. I said, that's probably why. Got a few more. One for the Amigos. Skate away from Weymouth. Witnessed totally disgusting behaviour on the beach at Weymouth yesterday. A man and a woman arguing in a front load of kids. Then she smacked him one on the head and it all kicked off between them. The police turned up. Then the policeman ended up using his baton on the bloke. But the man actually managed to get the baton off the copper, started hitting the copper and the woman with it. And then a crocodile turned up and stole all the sausages. And Jimmy Moore, thank you for this. She just texted me and said, I can still smell your colon on my pillow, and this is why spelling matters. And my dog tells me you're on drugs, says the copper. You're the one with the talking dog, says the woman. And you'd think she'd look a bit happier. That's all I'm saying. Brittany Gray, near climax.
Oh, doesn't look it.
And another one of those names, I'm not going to read it out. What you done now? Stole my cat, you legend. A couple more. Bill Pear, again, he's still getting some stick. Hi, mate, I was trying to enter a competition on ITV, but I said, I need your permission first. And this guy doesn't need any introduction from me either. But yeah, there's some wonderful names out there. Rob Maltman, our designer, who is designing the fanzine free of charge, he says, after all the negativity and disappointment on the podcast, this has to be tweet of the week. No matter how bad things get, just remember you could have been born in Mackham. Very good, mate. Very good. Not the winner this week, though. We have got a wonderful top 3. Here we go. Number 3. Managed to get tickets for Wembley, Cardiff and Edinburgh Oasis gigs. If you press Alt plus F4, it jumps you to the front of the queue. The reply was hilarious. Just tried this and it closed the window, you bastard. 4 hours waiting down the drain. And this is brilliant from Gary. Boeing Starliner astronauts stranded in space for 80 days will not return home until 2025. This guy replied, humanity's about 6 months to purchase 8 billion costumes for the ultimate prank. Knock down the Statue of Liberty as well to make it accurate, mate. But yeah, that was great. The winner, though, is a well-known fan in our fan base. Nicola, top lass, known her for many years, inadvertently has won Tweet of the Week by putting this up. Kieran Trippier over the fence.
Brilliant.
Nicola, I'm sure somebody will tell you you've won. Well done. Brilliant tweet. That did tickle me. Brilliant stuff. If you've got any, join the Facebook group, like the Facebook page, and you just need to stick them on there, or follow me on X at Steve Wraith, and we will endeavour to get through the growing mountain of tweets of the week and feature them next week. James Slater, I did like this. He goes, Newcastle United equals a Rubik's Cube wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a riddle. You get
that has to be solved by Stevie Wonder.
Something's wrapped in an enema.
It's never been any different. I'm not going to, speaking on over 70 years bloody experience, it's never been any different.
Just to get that stenciled onto the ground. C84, thanks for this one. It takes us in a slightly different direction, I think, away from the Mitchell debate. Question for the lads. He says, do you think James Bunce has had an impact on the way we've been playing recently? Is the high press, high energy game to blame for the injuries, and he's put a stop to it? Now, it's only hypothetical, this, and it's a question. We can only hazard a guess, George. I mean, do you think, in your 7 years experience watching Newcastle United and having played at that level yourself, albeit, you know, a long time ago, what we're seeing, do you think it's a result of maybe the new guy coming in and having to come up to Eddie and say, we need a few new ideas here because the injury list last year was probably down to this? He's obviously going to have an input. Or do you think it's down to what we possibly suggested and people have suggested in the chat, that we've had international football? You know, a lot of players have had to play internationals all the way through the summer. Some lads, like Anthony Gordon, for example, haven't had any time, really any good time off over 2 years. You know, or is it an amalgamation of everything? Or what's your thoughts? Do you think it's a bit of both, George? You know, what, or is it just that we've had because of the lack of, I don't know, that we are missing Sven Botman and we haven't brought in a centre half. So are we playing a slightly different style and being more defensive because Eddie wants to get off to a good start of the season and he thinks this is the way to do it?
Well, the one thing you can't criticise them for is that they're sticking together. I mean, a team that wasn't together might have got slaughtered off Spurs on Sunday. We didn't. We never give it up. And similarly with other games where we haven't played well, but the one thing we have done, particularly at the back, is we've stuck together. So there's still that togetherness in amongst the team. The thing that's bothered me, and I've mentioned it on here before, some time ago, is that what's happened on the pitch bothers me less, and on the training ground bothers me less than what some of the players get up to on their own when they're trying to do additional strengthening, when they're trying to do additional stamina work. Look at Dan Burn. Look at young Anderson. They were just people with broken backs because of what they were doing away from the club, not at the club. Now, I hope that's one thing this new guys got hold of, that they've all got a list of what they can and can't do away from the training ground, and not just to go off on their own. It sounds great that they're doing things on their own, but if they're going over the top and doing things that are doing damage, that needs to be jumped on as well. I agree a little bit with what you're saying about it there being a combination of things, about people doing international stuff and all the rest of it. But they're the same players. They're paid to play football, as far as I'm concerned. And if they can't play 2-3 games of football a week, then we're on a bad wicket all straight away. So I'm not, as I say, I'm not so concerned and upset about what's happening on the pitch as what's happening off the pitch. What are they doing that's on their own that's over the top? And I hope the new performance guys got a hold of that, because as I say, some horrendous injuries last year, which didn't happen on the training ground, or didn't happen on the football pitch. They happened away when people were trying to do extra training. That's got to be one of his remits, I would hope. The other thing is that what puzzles me so far, we've had a similar pattern for 3 games. First 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we've been absolutely electric. Then suddenly, by half time, we're less than electric. We're going backwards. Then we seem to wake up towards the end of the second half again. What's happening between that? Are they not getting enough Weetabix at half time or something like that? Because there's got to be a reason for that. If we'd have continued at Nottingham Forest the way we did in the first 10, 15 minutes, we would have had Forest dead and buried by half time. But we didn't. We backed off. We let a second-rate Forest team start the bosses. And I've got to say it largely because of a young man called Anderson, bossing the midfield. So that there's all sorts of things that I would put into the equation. And I do hope the new performance guys look at all of those things as well. There's a price to pay. I agree. There's a price to pay when you go in with the great intensity for 90 minutes, as we seem to be trying to before. That can only wear people out. And it showed a couple of times last year. I think Steve and I have already said in different ways. There were a couple of games last year where, because of the ineptitude of the senior players in the middle of the park, young Lewis Miley was carrying our midfield for at least half an hour into those games. Now, that shouldn't be right either. So all of that has to go into the equation that the new performance guy's doing, and he has a look at. His reputation goes before him. I mean, you just need to look at some of the stats of clubs, how their injury patterns changed before and after when he was involved with them, and let's hope he can get the benefit of that. But I don't think it's one thing, and I don't think it's just what's happening on the pitch. I think it's a number of things. But I just hope you can put it right, because the one thing we haven't lost, and I repeat what I said at the beginning, the one thing you could see on Sunday was the togetherness. They were determined not to give that game away, where a couple of years ago we would have been dead and buried. Would have been dead and buried. And a part of that was, of course, that by the end of the game, it started to waken Joe Linton up, because he's been awful. But suddenly he got into his mojo and laid on the winning goal with a piece of skill that, you know, has to be seen to be beholden. So there's more than one thing involved. But I do think it's something that the new performance guy needs to look at in the round, not just on one thing or another.
Okay, Steve, thoughts?
I can hardly turn around and say yes. I think the new performance director has had an impact when he's been here less than Paul Mitchell, and I've just said that Paul Mitchell hasn't had an impact because he hasn't been here very long. So I would be kind of contradicting myself, I suppose. What I would say is that I think when you get, and George mentioned the Forest game, so let's look at the Forest game first. When you get two teams playing high intensity, as both ourselves and Forest went out and tried to do, but one of them takes the lead so early in the game, there's always that temptation, especially when you nearly go 2-0 up, and then you think this team's having to go at this. We need to regroup here. We need to just think about what we're doing, and perhaps just try and adjust. Let's see what they've got, and let's see if they can keep it up. We can conserve a little bit of energy. We don't need to go high intensity against Iron high intensity, because we're already 1-0 up in the game. And I think Newcastle did an element of that in the Forest game. And I'd certainly think in the last 20 minutes that Forest literally had nothing left in the engine. And I think that we saw with the opportunities that we had in that game to really, really put it to bed, that we could have had that game dead and buried. But obviously they'd came back, they'd scored, and I think because of the way they were, I think it was inevitable that the game was going to go to penalties. The Tottenham game, I thought we showed a lot more intensity than we have in the previous two games ourselves. I thought that when you look at it, you think, well, Anthony Gordon, he ended the season injured. He went to the Euros. He's obviously, you can tell by his interview today with England that mentally he hasn't obviously been in a very good place. Disappointment, and it probably takes him a bit of time to get himself back into the swing of things. Self-confidence, as much as anything, that I'm sure would have been shot, because he says in his interview that he was very much a confident lad and he has confidence in his own ability, and he started to question that. Then you look at the changes we've had to make in the back four. You look at Bruno coming back late. Joe Linton really only just coming back from what was a really serious injury himself, where he was out for a long time. And then all the conversation built around how we could fit Tonali in or not. We lost some of the options that we had in midfield in terms of Miley and Anderson not being available. We had Almiron, who was away on international duty, and then he's had to go through all this rigmarole about whether or not they're going to sell him. And then obviously the injury to Willock as well. So we've been quite unsettled, but I thought the performance we put in was getting back to the sort of not so much high intensity, but very much playing as a team, playing together, pulling all for one, pulling things out of the mire when, like, for example, when Hall cleared the ball off the line, that type of thing. In a week earlier, we saw against Brentford where we had Livramento just trotting back. I think Livramento obviously had something in his ear, and or somebody in his ear, and we saw him playing with a little bit more intensity than he had the previous week. So all these are little combinations that all fall into place. James Bunce is there to make sure that the players are fit. He's there to make sure that Eddie has all the data at his disposal before he makes his selections, and that he's aware when players are slightly off piste in terms of fitness or in terms of what they're showing in training, so that he can make more profound judgments, if you like, more positive judgments on a player's availability. And I suppose also, with it being a very much squad, when to bring a player out, when to rest a particular player. And I think with the likes of James Bunsey, he's probably going to be also working on things like, you know what, this is a game we should be talking to give extra rest in 3 weeks' time, because we've got somebody coming back and you can fill in or do a particular job. I was listening to an article earlier about managers that give players 2 weeks off, just for the sake of helping them rejuvenate and recharge their batteries at certain times in the season. And one particular commentator was saying he thought it was ridiculous. The other commentator was saying that it's a great idea, but it takes a very, very confident manager to be able to turn around to a player and say, I'm resting you for a fortnight, I'm resting you for 3 weeks. It's the sort of thing Fergie would do in the past. The sort of thing some players would rail against. And I think, again, from a management point of view, you've got to know how to approach it and how to go about it. But I think that you're always looking for that edge. You're always looking for that extra little bit of knowledge, that extra bit of guidance as a manager. And that's what James Bunce is there for, to support the fitness side and support the psychological as well as the physical for the squad.
Mitch, thoughts on Bunce?
Bunce is there not just to talk about injuries. He's there to look at each individual player in a truly what I would call holistic fashion. He's there to manage their fitness, diet, mental health, not just the training regimes and not just to stop injuries on the pitch, but to make sure that they're in the best peak they can be throughout the season for each game. The tiredness and the lack of high press in the early season, the players have already said it themselves. Everybody who's been away is feeling like they're running through treacle. All of them, Bruno in particular, has said it twice. In the second half against Southampton, he was running on empty. We've shown enough fight. I think we'd have last season we'd have lost the Southampton game and we'd have lost the Spurs game. That togetherness and the will to fight was far more evident in the start of this season like it was 2 seasons ago compared to last season. One thing I think Bunce has already done is looked at Wilson, and I think this back operation he suddenly needed. I don't think it's a coincidence it was 2 weeks after Bunce come in. I think he's looked at his injury pattern and gone, right, historically I know that these injuries come from X, Y, Z. Let's just send him to check this. And if it means he misses a couple of games at the start of the season, happy days if he doesn't miss another one for the rest of the season. I know that's a big ask for Callum, given his record, but you never know. But I do think Bunce is going to take charge of personal fitness regimes out with the club. How many times have our players got injured doing something outside? You talk about Anderson doing his back, mainly in his foot. Pre-season, what kind of running was he doing? Was it the right kind of running? That kind of thing. And that's nothing new at Newcastle. Talk to Steve Howie about what happened after he broke his ankle when he went down the rabbit hole. Yeah. He then, in his desperation to stay fit, overtrained, bulked up so big on the top half of his body, his hamstrings couldn't cope, and he then suffered loads of hamstring injuries on the bounce. It's nothing new, but we have somebody in place who's got the scientific and background to take each individual player and say, right, we should be doing this, we should be looking at this. I think absolutely somebody made the comment about Gordon not doing weights, and yet he seems to be one who doesn't pick the injuries up. And he said in that interview with Gary Neville, he never does weights.
Yeah.
He does other types of training. So there's somebody who's looked at himself and gone, this isn't for me. And I was never built for that, and that'll not help me. I think there's so much pressure put on physicality in the modern game particularly at junior levels. It seems to be now, if you're fit enough and you can run through a brick wall for as long as possible and you have size about you, that will come out over players with real skill. And I think we're losing young players. I don't think we'll ever see another Peter Beardsley for a long time. I think he will be chucked in the too small, not fit enough, not physical enough bin. Makes you wonder what they would do with Diego Maradona these days. You know, but this is where it seems to be, and I think that's Bunce's role. It's not just about preventing injuries; it's about looking after each player in a holistic fashion, and delivering then a better choice of players, a better selection of players, a fitter selection of players, both physically and mentally. And certainly, there doesn't seem anything wrong with the squad mentally. For all everybody keeps trying to tell with that, this one's miserable and that one's horrible, and this one. When they fight on that pitch, they fight on that pitch for each other. And that was evidenced in every game, even when we weren't playing well. So I think that's the kind of impact he can have. And I think he's already had a good impact initially. So long may that continue.
I tell you what, we'll bring in. We're going to bring in somebody who played the game for Newcastle United in the number 9 shirt back in the 80s. Won the FA Youth Cup with Gaza. It's a big welcome to Joe Allen. Joe, you're on mute. I'm not sure whether you can unmute yourself. I'm not sure whether you can unmute yourself or not. If not, we'll bring you back in when you've sorted it out. But just wanted to ask Joe about. There we go. You're on, mate. You're on. You're live. Welcome to the show, Joe. We're talking about Newcastle United and bringing in Bunce on the fitness side of things, but I'll widen it for you, Joe. Just have a chat about how Newcastle have played in the first 4 games. You've sat back and you've watched all 4 games. You've watched the 3 league games. You've seen the Carabao Cup game. I think the consensus of opinion on here is Newcastle haven't really played that well. The question we're asking before you came on was. One of the viewers had asked whether Bunce had, because he's come in, has he come in and said we need to change a little bit of the training? Do you think watching the games, Joe, it's down to maybe it's a change in training? Is it down to too much football being played with the likes of Anthony Gordon, for example, who's not had a rest in 2 years? Why do you think Newcastle have got off to a slower start?
Well, first and foremost, good evening, Stephen. Good evening, gents. It's great to see you.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you.
Can I just say before we start, a massive thank you to each and every one of you, especially you, Steve, and everybody involved with nufcmatters who went to the event at the Newcastle Irish Centre for Dementia Matters. And it was an outstanding display of generosity. And from at the bottom of my heart, I just want to say on the record, thank you so much, and each and every one of the supporters that turned up, because it's really, really important.
Cheers, Joe. 1,200 quid were raised for Dementia Matters. Cracking night. Everyone up there sharing their thoughts, sharing their money. But we all had a cracking night as well. We'll be doing something else a little bit later this year, of course, the Christmas night. We'll be doing the same for Dementia Matters. But big shout out to everybody who came along to that. It was fantastic. But Joe, getting back to the football, what's your views on Newcastle's opening games? And do you think we've changed? Do you think something's changed? And if so, what do you think's changed?
See, I can only say from a footballer's point of view, you look after yourself and your own fitness. That's first and foremost, because without your fitness for yourself, you can't play. What's the point in being a footballer, a professional footballer, any footballer at any level? If you don't look after yourself, you're not going to play right. Now, you can blame pitches, you can blame fitness courses, you can blame diets, you can blame Sunderland, let's face it. But at the end of the day, it's all about the player knowing about his body. And you've got to understand, I just got the end of the Peter Beardsley thing. And at the end of the day, you get bought a Peter Beardsley, you get a magician like that once every flood, and Peter Beardsley would play in anybody's team, whether his fitness is in doubt. And I understand about the physicality, but the difference is it always has been, and it always will be, 11 players against 11 players in one ball. You've got all these things that's coming into the game and all that, and the VAR and this decision and that decision, and it makes us really angry to to think, you know, at the end of the day, you go to train. These people are professional athletes, right? They're highly tuned athletes. They get the best of everything. Trust me, even when I played, you get treated like an absolute lord. You get everything laid on for you, and it's down to you to keep your fitness. I can't understand how a player, we know who I'm talking about, can be injured before the start of the season. You know, he's a centre forward and he's pivotal to the point of Newcastle United's attack. But now you look at things of why, and you'll ask the questions: is it a fitness thing? Is it the player not looking after himself? Did he think he was going to go to the Euros? I don't know. You talk about Gordon, and he did play a lot of minutes, but he didn't play any minutes when he was in the Euros. And at the end of the day, his attitude's been absolutely first class. And he's a great player who are getting the team every day of the week for me. And he should be in the England squad, in the England side, not the squad. But that's my opinion. But getting back to the players and whatever, look after yourself, you know. It's easy to say, oh, he did this and he did that. That's an absolute load of tosh. You know, the player looks after himself to get himself right, to get on the pitch. And yeah, people, listen, you'll get a dressing room with 30 people, all right? 30 people in any aspect, Steve, your job, anything, right? 30 people, you're never going to get on. People that have worked in industries over the years, 30 people in a room are not going to get on. You're going to get people that dislike people. You're going to have people that can't stand each other. But at 11 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, you're all in the same pot. You know, you're all there together and you're fighting for everything. You're fighting for each other. But you might not speak for another week. I used to play with wingers. I couldn't stand them. I didn't used to speak to them for 5 days. On a Saturday morning, I used to sit next to them on the bus, rubbing the back, stroking the hair. Or you're going to put a couple of crosses in for me today. Once they put the crosses in that squad, I never spoke to them for another 5 days. I couldn't give a hoot. But the thing is, this is what football's about, you know. It's all about a mental thing as well. But it's down to the player to look after himself as first and foremost by any shortfall, you know.
You played under number 9 shirt, Joe, something which none of us have ever done. And you mentioned Callum Wilson there. Just have a quick chat about Alexander Isak. He's managed to get off the mark against Tottenham, an important goal, for us to get us to get us a win. Scored a couple of goals for Sweden yesterday as well. So it looks like he's got his eye in again. But how important is keeping him fit for Newcastle's chances this year?
Well, I think it's instrumental in Newcastle United's season. I just think, honestly, this guy, whoever found him, I'll tell you what, he is gold dust. And he is gold dust as well. And the fact is, I loved his goal that he scored when he's tapped it in from 6 yards, because that, for me, is the best goal of the whole game. You know, and he scored some brilliant goals. But what he has got as well, he's got this, he's not lazy as a centre forward. He's very rarely, with his body movement, he gets into them positions where he's always on the shoulder of the defender. And that little split second there is the difference between a goal or not. And if you get caught offside when you're the outside man, that's down to one thing. It's laziness of the player. And the player can't afford to do that. When he's on the outside, he's got the whole picture in front of him. He can see the whole line. Now, that's laziness when he runs offside. Isak's brilliant. He's a pass master at it. His movement, it might just be a half a yard, a quarter of a yard. And that's the difference, that split seconds of scoring a goal and not scoring a goal, and being offside and not being offside. And like I say, it's instrumental for him to stay fit. But he's a goal scorer and he'll always score goals. And we are very, very fortunate to have that lad.
Joe, before you go, we're going to get you on a regular basis onto the platform over the coming months. We talked about it last year. We're going to get you on and we're going to have a show together. We were talking about your career. We're talking about Jack Charlton. You're busy working on a couple of things, but the Jack Charlton pay story. Tell us before you go that one story that you were telling me today about when you went in and asked Jack Charlton for a pay rise.
Well, it's funny, you know, because things come to you, Steve, and obviously I've not been well lately, but I'm on the mend, as you know, and things come back to you. And I remember it was me and this lad, I call him the chosen one, and he's called Paul Gascoigne, as we know. But we were on 25 quid a week at Newcastle United. We're on this thing called the YOP scheme. I mean, the Steve Hasties and Richard Dentist still know all about that. George will not know about it because it used to be called the Youth Opportunity Programme. And we used to get 25 quid off the government. So I was one of Thatcher's youth. And anyway, we were on 25 quid and we used to get 20 quid for our parents off the club for our board and lodgings. And that was a hell of a lot of money in them days, 25 quid. By, say, 12 o'clock, we got paid on a Friday. By 12:05, Gazza's 20 had been in the bookies, and my 20 had been spent on this fashionable gear you would get from Burton's as possible for 20 quid. Anyway, that's another story. So anyway, we're getting on the verge of the first team. We're 17-year-old, and it's young to turn pro. But the thing was, Jack was in charge, and to get your pro contract at 17 was a good thing because it was a year early in your apprenticeship. And I went in to see the gaffer, and I knocked on the door, and he went like, "What do you want?" I said, "I've come about a contract, gaffer." "Well, what do you mean? You've got a contract." I went, "I know, but a new one, like I'm playing with the first team every day, you know." "Oh, all right, okay, I've got it." So he had it prepared already, didn't he? He says, "You're getting £150 a week. You're getting £100 a goal and £100 a game. But in this summer, I'm going to pay you £60. I want you to learn a trade. I want you to get something under your belt, whether it's painting and decorating, woodwork or metalwork, bricklaying." I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, bricklaying? What? He went, "I think you're a good player." I thought, "You think I'm a good player? You want us to be bricklaying?" Anyway, he says, "I'm going to give you 5,000 to sign as well." I went, "That's not bad." He says, "Give it to your mum, pay for a house." I went, "Great." So I went out thinking, I've won the pools here. 25 quid to 150. Brilliant. All that thing about £100 appearance. I didn't realise, like, I was after my debut, he said I'd done great against Stoke. Brilliant. I never played for another 9 months. Anyway, I got me 100 quid for the game. Gazza went in. He comes out. I went, "And how do you do?" 150. I went, "Yeah." £100 a goal, £100 a game, and in the summer I get 80. He says we want to do bricklaying and metalwork, something I don't know what he's talking about. He wants us to get a job, I think. I don't know. I went, "Oh, I said, did your mother get out?" 5,000. I went, "Right." So I brayed his door down the gaffer. I went in. He went, "What do you want?" I went, "Gaffer, 150 quid for me, £100 a game, £100 a goal. You've give Gazza 80 quid in the summer and me 60. He went, "He's a better player than you." I says, "Not in the flipping summer, he's not." I got the extra 20. I got the extra 20 quid.
God bless him.
The true story.
Joe, brilliant stuff. You've got a lot of stories like that. I'm looking forward to sharing them with the viewers over the course of the next few months. We'll sort out a day. We'll get you on. But Joe, have a good night tonight, mate. Great to see you, and you're looking so well. Look forward to seeing you again soon, mate. Take care.
Thanks, Jensen. Thanks, lads.
Cheers, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, slightly overrun with Joe on, but great to see him on. And he is an ambassador for Dementia Matters. Top bloke. We'll have a quick ad break, and we will be back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to our NUFC Matters fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. All excursions included, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, a 2-crew driver and courier. It's a local family company, and you can find them at www.unitedgrouptravel.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video. That's the like button. It does help us grow. And click the share button. help share to your social media. If you want to join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month, then hit the join button under this video today. We also help the food bank on this channel. Visit nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. It takes you to the match day bucket where you can donate some money virtually. Some events for your diary in aid of Dementia Matters. The Long Sands will be reforming and be supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band at the Cluny in Newcastle on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets are £15 pre-sale from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January 2025. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com or from Woucher. And an evening with the Entertainers takes place on the 24th of January 2025. Telephone the box office 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge at Gateshead Leisure Centre is now open. 7 tokens for £99. Joe Allen will be hosting tokens with Lee Clark, John Anderson, Steve Howie, Darren Peacock, Supermac, Steve Watson, John Beresford, all between the dates of January and July. £99 for 7 tokens, newcastlelegends.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our NUFC Matters fanzine, £20 for 4 issues with all proceeds going to Dementia Matters. If you live overseas, it is £50 for 4 issues. To order now, go to newcastlelegends.com. And thanks to everybody who has subscribed to the fanzine, 72 of you. That means that there's still a lot more of you in the chat who could go to newcastlelegends.com and subscribe. It has gone away to the designer today, Rob Maltman, who is often in the chat these days, who has agreed to design all 4 fanzines for free. And of course, United Group Travel, who have agreed to do the printing, which means that all the profits from the fanzine can go straight to Dementia Matters. Not a lot to ask for 200 of you to subscribe to it. I don't really want to be humping magazines to the back page and asking them to flog them for us so we don't get the full amount for the charity. So please subscribe. newcastlelegends.com. Some great articles in there and well worth spending the money on it. Only 20 quid for 4 issues. So please subscribe today. And nice messages about Joe. That was great. As Gary Jackie Nicholson says, could listen to Joe all night. He seems like a top bloke, and he is a top bloke. It was great to have him on. And yeah, we'll work something out maybe once a month to start with, but we'll get Joe on. He's got a great opinion. He's got a good sense of humour, and he's very knowledgeable on Newcastle United. Okay, as always, plenty to get through on the show. Shall we play a little bit of that music that everybody likes? What is it, George? What's the segment called? The Day I Met. The Day I Met, where we asked you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present. And Scunny Mag, it might not be the clearest photograph, mate, but this is definitely a great one. He says, not sure if this counts for the Day I Met, but I snapped it after bumping into the entire squad and coaching staff on their Sunday morning stroll in Bournemouth. There they go, wandering off.
Brilliant.
So that's them in the background over Scunny Mag's shoulder. Fantastic, mate. Well done. That's probably the most people you've managed to cram into a photograph on this segment. But well done. But that gives us the opportunity to play the music. Okay,
supposed to be the day I met Steve, not the day I saw somebody from a distance.
Yeah, I know. True. Yeah, I did say at the start it was pushing it slightly, but never mind. A big shout out to everybody watching elsewhere. By the way, we've got 550 watching on YouTube, with another 400 odd watching elsewhere. 966 of you watching in total. We'll never take it for granted. Thanks to everybody on Twitter, especially for watching. So if you're watching on Twitter, go to YouTube, search NUFC Matters, subscribe. We still do 7 shows a week. Anthony Beatty says, would the lads agree that if PSR isn't changed, the Premier League's strict enforcement of it will actually kill the goose that laid the golden egg? Players and top-class staff will go elsewhere that maybe don't enforce it as rigidly or have more scope to operate within it. So I'm going to start with you, Mitch, on this, because we can entwine this with what has gone on with Leicester, what hasn't gone on with Man City. We haven't heard anything about the Man City case yet, but the Leicester thing is very interesting this week. Give us your views and maybe entwine an answer to Anthony within it.
I was going to do that anyway, to be fair. I actually think PSR will die soon. I think the result of Leicester's case through the week shows me that if you challenge it robustly, they do not apply the rules rigidly. They do not apply the rules fairly. They do not apply the rules sometimes. It's haphazard. It's lackadaisical. It's happy-go-lucky. It depends on the kind of relationship that you've got with them. Go back to the Everton farce. Well, we're going to deduct them 8 points, but we took it down to 6 because they give us some nice biscuits with a coffee. You know, it was just as random as that. But the Leicester case in particular, you know, makes a mockery of exceptional circumstances for Man United due to COVID when nobody else was getting the same exceptional services. Exceptional circumstances because of exchange rates during the buy-in by Ratcliffe. Where were they changing their money? At a backstreet money lender? You know, some of this is just mental, but also shows how they can't apply the rules fairly and evenly. They sometimes don't know what rules they're applying. That their approval of Chelsea's hotel sale leaves a massive hole, which I've got no doubt they're going to exploit one way or the other, because purchases like that don't go into PSR, but sales do. They could quite easily buy the hotels back and sell them to themselves again when they need a bit of relief down the line. And there's nothing in the rules that's written about it. Stop it. When you've got amendments brought in to shut doors on clubs, and then you have some of them specifically colloquially known by everybody as the Newcastle amendments, that for me is another one. How they applied the rules to Everton really wasn't fair or even. And so the whole crux of what Leicester have done through the week is they've shown what an absolute mess it is. What the Premier League were pushing the Football League to do was to do their dirty work for them had Leicester not got promoted. And the AFL said, oh, not our jurisdiction, we're not getting involved in this. You wonder why? Because it's such a legal minefield. But now, because there's nothing in the rules about what happens if you're relegated, because they never thought about that. Right? They've never thought about a lot of things. I honestly think we're going to see the death of it, because we're going to see more challenges, more and more challenges. I've got no doubt about that. The Man City arbitration, the longer it goes on with not a squeak, I suspect we'll find that there'll be some wins and some losses in there, but more losses for the Premier League than wins. And I think we'll eventually see a closing of PSR as we know it. It is going to change anyway soon, because it should be coming in line with UEFA more. But the problem with the UEFA things, yes, they'll have a go at... they'll say, yep, okay, Chelsea, you can't do this and you can't do that, but there's a fine. Chelsea will take a fine all day long. Chelsea will take a fiscal penalty all day long, as long as it's not a sporting penalty. That said, what they've done with their squad announcement for the Europa League makes a mockery of the competition. Oh, we're going to leave some more best players out just to rest them because we feel like we don't need them because the new system suits a club like Chelsea. You can lose a couple of games and still qualify for the knockout rounds under this Swiss chess system that everybody says is fairer. Yeah, it's fairer on the big clubs. It gives them a chance to fuck up and still qualify for the knockout stages. That's the whole point. It generates more big club versus big club games to keep the television companies happy through the group stage. And then it creates a knockout league where basically the big clubs can't fail. And so it's a total mockery about what's going on. And they're at the front and centre of all the mockeries that are going on. Nicholas Jackson's contract extension. Like I said through the week, New York Mets are still paying for a player that retired 10 years ago. They're still paying his wages now and will be until 2033 because he deferred so much of his wages to be taken after he retired. Is that what we're going to see Chelsea doing next? Because they're trying to tell me they've got an average wage of 60,000 a week at the moment. Yeah, bullshit. And the rest. Pull the other one. That's got bells and whistles on it. And so all this creative accounting, it's aggressively Chelsea's attack on PSR. And we've had another instance this week with another mystery company with made-up LinkedIn pages, which is effectively a gambling company again from the Far East, sponsoring Fulham. And that's gone through on the nod. I was speaking to somebody here in Dubai, and we're seriously thinking about inventing a company and seeing if we can get ourselves in as shirt sponsors on somebody, because it sounds like it's a piece of cake. If you're in the middle of the Far East and you have a bit of mystery about you, and you can make all sorts of spurious claims, happy days, they'll wave everything through. But it then begs the question: where's this money really coming from? Because there'll be money going into Fulham, but I guarantee it's not from that company. But where's it coming from? Premier League don't want to know, because they're currently rocking in the corner with their hands over their ears, wanting everything just to go away now, I think. And I think, do we start doing things like selling the land around the ground? Is that what Mystery Fence Man is hoping, that we want to buy up all the land around the ground, then sell it to PIF and balance the books that way? It's such a farce now, and I really think the time's running out for the Premier League. The other thing they've been criticised for their legal bills. Their legal bill that they tried to foist onto Everton. What was the comment that somebody made in reviewing it? It's a very simple case of football club accounting. We are not bringing down an international kingpin of a drugs ring. Because the legal bills were something like 5 times what they reckoned they should have been. So I think, we've got situations brewing at many different clubs. Look at Villa; they have had to do the selling and buying players dance, and now the fans are being punished for qualifying for the Champions League, being charged £100 a game, £85 for wheelchair users per game. And we thought our ticket increase was bad. Celtic fans are paying £184 for a 4-game package. But Villa need the money so badly to balance everything out. £100 a game, bang. Some of those fans must feel so let down and disappointed. Qualify for the biggest competition, and some of them won't be able to afford to go, because I'm sure there's some people at Villa can barely afford their bloody season tickets. And so it comes back to all of these things, all these roads lead back to financial sustainability. None of this sounds sustainable to me. So for me, I think it's a death knell, and I think you're going to see more and more people go legal with it.
Okay, Steve, your thoughts?
The Chelsea one's interesting, really, really interesting, because, as you said, Mitch, they go into the conference, they breach the levels that they're entitled to. Fiscally, I wonder if Chelsea will be able to claim that back for the PSR if they do get fined by UEFA. The other crazy thing is that Chelsea, with the hotels, they sold the hotels to a company that's linked to themselves, but then they immediately handed, or that company in the group handed Chelsea back a management contract to run those hotels. And as part of that contract, they benefit from the profit of those hotels. So what's going on there? And yet they allow that sort of thing to happen. You talked about the AFL and Leicester. I think the AFL refused to. One of the reasons why, and this is the politics of football, one of the reasons why the AFL decided not to support the EPL, in trying to get them to push through and have it done before Leicester were promoted, is because the EFL and the EPL are in dispute over the TV money. So nothing to do with football, but it's politics. It's football politics. So a falling out at that level has an impact on how the rules are dictated to and about and by. You've got some crazy situations with, and I'm rolling all this into what we're just talking about with the question, which was about profit and sustainability. You've got clubs, and you mentioned the Champions League there. You've got Man City and Man United and Aston Villa. Actually now, because of their financial perils that they're in, charging in some instances doubling the price of a disabled car park space for their fans. Are you telling me that Manchester United, Manchester City and Aston Villa are so desperate for cash that they have to double the parking charges and put them up to £250 a season for disabled people to park their cars?
Man City have announced today they've reversed that decision.
Yep, they've reversed it, but it took the Man City Supporters Trust in an absolute deluge, and Man City did it, in knowing that meanwhile down the road, well, let's compare those two clubs, shall we? You've got they've just reversed their decision, and you've got Pep Guardiola, who gave 70 people as the backroom staff all 10 grand as a bonus out of his own pocket as a thank you. Meanwhile, the owner of Man United, who's worth 18 billion, decides, you know what, I'm going to make 250 of you redundant. This is where we're at with people in football clubs and things like that. But in terms of the Europeans and the profit and sustainability rules, I jotted a couple of things down here. You look at that ridiculous thing called coefficient, and last season Man City got 33 million just for being in the Champions League. So as soon as they qualified, they got 33 million before they'd even kicked the ball. Man United got 28.4 million before they kicked the ball. Arsenal got 25 million before they kicked the ball. We got 4.5 million. We're in the same competition. But because they have been in the competition last year and the year before and the year before that, every year they get extra based on the coefficient. And then it gets even worse, because you then look at the TV revenue and you think, well, they're in a competition, so surely the TV revenue gets broken up and is even. Last year, City got 22.3 million from UEFA for the TV revenue. Arsenal got 19.2 million. Man United got 12.1 million, and we got 9. That's how it's split. And you're wondering how there's a gap between the top and the bottom, and how there's a gap between clubs who are being forced into profit and sustainability rules like us and being hamstrung, while you've got Man City, Man United and Arsenal simply getting handed sums like 25, 28 and 33 million pound at the start of the season. And we're wondering about the gap when we get 4. Obviously next season we're getting on, but they're in Europe. They'll get their coefficients. So I'll give them an awful lot more. And it's things like that. And you think, why is this? And it's because you've got those 14 clubs that run European football who carved the whole thing up a couple of seasons ago and now are just squeezing the nuts. And they're the same clubs who are going to go for the European Super League. And because of the European Super League getting knocked on the head by the supporters, UEFA had to do something, and they bring in fees like that, coefficients. If that's what City got, I dread to think what Barcelona got. I dread to think and look to see what Real Madrid got. But we're talking about the gap, and we're talking about the gap between the top and the middle. I'm not even talking about the gap between the top and the bottom, because I think, we're in that middle band. But we're not even going to be able to compete with proper sustainability. It makes you wonder whether, and I know he has an agenda, but when Richard Keys says things like Newcastle won't win anything, I think what he's getting at is the fact that the advantage that those top clubs have got from a purely financial point of view, the way that the whole thing's been carved up over the years and the way that they've stitched Newcastle United up since the takeover, means it's going to be harder and harder and harder for us to break that equilibrium. And I suppose the only way we can do it are going to be two ways. And one of them is the commercials off the pitch. And we mentioned the commercials earlier. And no matter what Paul Mitchell says in terms of being able to wheel and deal in the transfer market, it's the Silverstones of this world who have got to really, really push and get the commercial deals for Newcastle United. And that leads us on to the big commercial, which is the stadium. What you do with the stadium 7 days a week, and what you do with a 52,000-seater stadium, and what you could do even more if you can get more commercial aspects into that stadium, or whether you have to go for a new one. And I think it's things like this will be dictating the feasibility study for the new ground, which I'm almost certain will lead to Newcastle United having a new stadium built. It may take a while, but I think that's the direction of travel. Because I can't see any other way of being able to fit into St James's Park as many executive boxes and commercial opportunities for the likes of Silverstone and his team to get involved in and to bring to the football club, while we're sitting on that footprint at the moment, without taking seats from regular fans if they wanted to put another ring of executive boxes in, for example. And I don't think even behind the scenes they've got the ability to be able to control that. So it's all of those things, and I think these are all the spinning plates that we've got at Newcastle, Steve.
It might be the reason as well that a 10-year plan has been mooted now, albeit by one person just being interviewed and maybe saying it off the top of his head. But that's just one of those particular reasons, because new stadiums, I'm afraid,
2 5-year ones.
new stadiums don't happen overnight, I'm afraid. They do want a computer graphic, but not when you've got people building them. George, it's been an interesting week, hasn't it, with the Leicester, the Leicester Football Club situation, obviously finding a loophole, I guess, and lots of debate on this again this week.
Not a loophole for me. It's just plain straightforward bloody corruption. Why they haven't been called out? I'm still wondering why. Did we sign something when we got our takeover through with them to say that we wouldn't take them to court or something like that? Because it sticks out like a sore thumb that everything that they do, everything they touch, is an anti-competition. And all these things that the lads have been reading out are anti-competition. Why should one group of clubs be allowed to do this and none of the others are? And if the rules that they brought out suddenly became the Newcastle rules, surely that in itself should have took some legal action of some kind, because it was an admission that was principally designed to stop Newcastle United going forward. And that's just, beggars belief that we haven't done something about it. But I think I agree with Neil that because of the Leicester thing and other things that are happening, and the danger that others will follow Leicester's lead, PSR is on its death knell as far as I'm concerned, and so should some of the people that's involved in the Premier League. The top thing that bothers me, and Steve went on to at the end of his piece. Who's paying for this? Eventually, the fans. there is a way of getting the most out of a 52,000 seater stadium rather than an 80,000 seater stadium. They just charge you all 100 quid a game, like they're doing at Aston Villa. Yeah, you lose all the traditional supporters. You lose all the pie and sausage sandwich brigade and get the prawn sandwich brigade in instead. But that's another way of doing it. And some of the thinking with this stuff does bother me. When I said the other night, and Steve was with us on Saturday, listening to people complaining about the shop, it was like we're back in Ashley's days. Go online.
People always find something to grumble about, though, lads, don't they? We could win the treble and there'd be still somebody in the chat or somebody in the club or somebody at the bar or whatever. There'd still be somebody unhappy.
Well, and rightly so, because they're paying, at the end of the day, they're paying the wages. So if you're paying the piper, you're entitled to complain a little bit.
Well, they're putting some of the hard in. I wouldn't say they're paying the wages. I'd say they're putting some of the hard in cash in. I think gone are the days of us paying the wages. It's Sky and people like that who pay the wages. But we pay our bit. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the people who are sitting in them seats who are getting screwed right, left, and centre about all of this stuff, and it just depressing in some ways, and takes away the enjoyment of your football, in my opinion. It just is. It puts another layer of dross you've got to get rid of before you can start to even enjoy the football. And
I think it's the whittling away of it, isn't it, though, George? The whittling away of the game as we know it in terms of the match day experience. And it was only 3-4 seasons ago where during COVID where they were saying football's nothing without fans. So, and before that, the conversation was always we could actually let you all in for free. Because commercially, this Premier League is so good. We're bringing so much TV revenue in. It's not that long ago that they were shouting and telling us that, in effect, the TV deal that they signed, which was actually a worse deal than the deal they had, although they managed to spin it out to say it was a much better deal, they turned around and said that there was every possibility the deal that comes after that could be worth double. And you're going, wow, all that happens is they just suddenly charge the players, start to pay the players twice as much. So all the money just immediately gets filtered into that direction. And at the end of the day, whenever there's a need, and it happens everywhere, when there's a struggle, the begging bowl always comes out to the fans, because the fans are the only constant at that football ground. The supporters, we are the only constant, and they always come back to us. And yet we're the first ones that they will then, if the opportunity arises, that they will do their best to have a go at, whether it's refuse your entry for one thing, whether it's to charge you twice as much for something else. And I'm not saying this is Newcastle United, I'm saying this is football right across the board. The cost of tickets, the fact that it's £30 for an away game, which is brilliant. That was fans that pushed for that. But it means that the home fans are now paying 90 in this technique, so they get the money back at the other extreme. And so it goes on. And this is where we're heading. And somebody mentioned there about the virtual boxes. This is another thing that'll come in. And I'll not be going. It's the same as I'll not be drinking in the Stack because I prefer to go somewhere else. I've got my own regime. But the whole emphasis is on, from a commercial perspective, not looking at commercial deals, but looking at how much at the moment it would appear that we can squeeze out of the match going far. And, is it, and why is that? It's because consciously they know that they've got us, because we've signed up to be a fan the day we were born, the day our dad took us to the first match, the day we wore our first black and white shirt. That's when it was. That's when we signed up to being Newcastle United supporters. And once you support a football club, you stay. Yes, there might be foreign fans that hop and jump and switch from Man United to Arsenal or Liverpool or City at half time and as a joke you see them on the internet. But the hardcore fan, the true fan, you support your team through thick and thin, and they know that, and they know they've got you, and they know if necessary they'll squeeze you. The membership scheme could be free. There's no need for a membership scheme to be 37 quid for getting absolutely nothing other than having an opportunity in a ballot to go to maybe one game a season, stuff like that. There's no benefit to it. The cost of shirts are ridiculous now. It's not long ago that there was hell on when they went up to 49 quid. Now they're at 80 quid. And it's all forgotten about in the whole politics of things. And we can stick together as fans, or we can split up as fans, but it makes no difference, because at the end of the day, the money men will always squeeze the nuts over.
So somebody asked about the price of tickets back when.
Yeah.
Interesting stat that was on. I saw this week. A ticket to see the European Cup final in 1982 between Bayern Munich and Villa cost 20 guilders, which was £4.28 at the time. Inflation would take that to £14.78 in modern terms, while Villa are charging between £85 and £97 for a group game this coming season.
Not the final.
Yeah. And the other thing that irritates me greatly is this notion about what it means to fans. You've all heard the stories before from years and years ago that if Newcastle won on a Saturday, production in the shipyards on Monday went up 20%, and for the best part of that week. The idiots that run it now haven't even worked that out. It's still the same. We get we haven't got the shipyards, but a big win on a Saturday, wherever we are, you walk down Northumberland Street and into the shops on a Monday, and the talk's all about the match. You can hear it all over Northumberland Street. But I don't think the idiots in the place have worked that out yet.
You see it on the roads as well, George, because you want to see the speed of some of those Amazon drivers when we've won.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I've got about 10 minutes left. Probably not as much time as we would normally like. As always, we don't organise the show. We just start a couple of subjects and we chat about it, and that's just the way it goes. But
like
great to see someone.
We'll just roll with it.
Hey, very good. But as always, we'll fit in a lookalike or two. So many good ones this week. Thank you, everybody. You've upped your game. Certainly have, especially Rita, who has found 3 Steve Hasties for the price of 1. There we go, Steve.
Oh, the family.
Don't worry, Steve. They get better. Rita did send this one in as well. James Cagney and Ryan Fraser. Not bad. And Eddie Howe and Tim Jenkins from Spurs.
That's good.
Yeah, there's a bit there.
Told you, yeah. This was a good one. The test card and Boris and his missus. I'm sure we've had that one before, Gary, but you did send it quite late. I found this one trolling their ex the other night. This is brilliant, by the way. 2 guys in a video store replicating the FIFA 07 cover. Sorry, brilliant that, lads. It is, yeah, very good, very good. And this one from Gary Scott as well. Blade and his cousin Butter Knife. It's slightly lookalike. This one from Sean Doyle, Fergal Westbrook.
Oh, Jesus.
Fergal Sharky, yeah.
And Leighton Phillips with this one. Yeah, I can see the similarity. This was bad taste. Martin, very bad taste. Yeah, exactly. You see what I mean? People open their game. Carol Spencer, detective in a film I watched, and Jeremy Clarkson.
Yes, he used to be in Colditz as well, didn't he?
Yeah, another good one. Gareth Varney, thanks for this one. He has 4 lookalikes for the 3 Amigos show.
Brilliant.
Very good. And Alan McKenzie, Sir Ian McKellen, and Sid James.
Why?
If the cap fits. Keith Patterson lookalike.
Poor Keith. Oh, drool.
And another Steve Hasty lookalike.
All right. I saw that one. I saw that when Stephen posted that. It's classic, that. Mr. Patterson did send it to us as well, by the way.
I bet he did. Gary Venable sent this one. Bruno, Rashford, Casemiro, and Onana.
Right.
And I think he'd had a few when he sent us that one. Jim Leighton, and the Wealdstone Raider, who was at the match again last week at Newcastle.
He's top pals with isn't he?
He's doing stag do's, isn't he?
He is. He was at the match again last week. This one's a good one. Is this Marwan Fellaini's parents on their wedding day?
Yeah.
Look at him.
He looks like his dad. We've seen this one a few times, but lots of people submitting this with it being like Oasis week. The size between Anthony Gordon and Dan Burn is mental. Dan Burn there with Anthony Gordon lookalike.
Oh, young mascot. Great.
And breaking news, Blur have now announced a World Tour too. We've got a load of these kind of things, but yeah, Blur lookalikes there, the in-betweeners, of course. Predator.
Driven by drugs.
And we've had this a load of times as well, Albert. Well, I've shown it because it's you, Albert. We have had that one quite a few times.
Never disappoints that.
Yeah, never disappoints. A late one, Tom Hardy and Logan Marshall Green.
That's good.
Aye.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. And this one from Soda Pop Kid. Tom Stellick, of course. Harrison Ford and the Chipmunks.
Fantastic.
But I did say we're up again. We've got a top 4. Difficult to pick a winner. Alex Ferguson, anybody from Chippers?
Wow. Yeah.
Wearing a Man City coat.
Aye.
Number 3 from Jimmy Moore. A woman on the French underground and the Mona Lisa. Number 2 from Sid from Talk of the Tune. Lookalikes. Man is playing for both teams and is also watching himself from the stands. 3 lookalikes on the picture. But I've got to say, because it's been talked about so much and nobody's put it in, Steve Hasty put it in this week.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Orson Welles and Magnus.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So there you are, Magnus.
Well done, Magnus.
Like, send it to me at Steve Wraith on X, or go to the Facebook group or the Facebook page. Hit the join group on the page. Hit the link on the Facebook page, and join the group and send them on there. We want to give a special mention to someone who sent this late as well. It says, "This is Betty, our new Toon fan, wearing the colours and badge with proof."
Fantastic. Well done, Martin. Love it.
Very good. But that finishes the. And that is the end of the show. We have got time to squeeze in Elliot's thought of the week. My wife's just told me she's broken a sat nav and wants £150 for a new one. Shouldn't get lost.
Yeah.
Very, very good, Elliot. Thank you. We've had another couple of subscribers to the fanzine. We're up to 76. Please get yourself onto newcastlelegends.com and subscribe. It's only 20 quid for 4 issues. We're all doing it for free. Designer, printer, the lot. We've given up a bit of time to do it. We'd love to get to 200. We'd love to sell all 200, and then it's pure profit for the charity. The charity, Dementia Matters, are struggling. They haven't got the money that other big charities have. They're self-sufficient. What we do to help them, every penny counts. So newcastlelegends.com, please get yourself on there and subscribe to the fanzine today. I haven't confirmed what time we're back on Sunday live with the professionals, but I presume it'll be 5 o'clock. There's no football. I'll have to double check with Stu and Mitch. But tomorrow, 6 o'clock, Mitch gives us his worst 11. So that is live at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, a pre-recorded show. Enjoy that. And thanks to George, thanks to Steve, thanks to Mitch, and thanks to Joe Allen for popping on. Thanks to you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, NUFC Matters on YouTube. And we will see you all again soon. Take care, lads.
All the best, guys.
Everyone.